Okay, so let's get right into this thing. Now, this is a particularly itchy topic, if you will, because a lot of the Social Security recipients are waiting to see what's going to happen. And here's why: there's a lot of money here, potentially, that could go to Social Security beneficiaries as an increase under the Social Security Fairness Act. Now, the big question is, will the Senate pass it? And then, of course, the follow up question to it is, will President Biden, using his presidential power, actually pass that bill forward? Now, the Social Security Fairness Act basically goes and gets rid of two things that were put in place during the 70s and the 80s to make it more fair for people who are also receiving a government pension. Now, the idea is that the people getting the government pension were getting a reduction as to how much Social Security benefits they would get because they didn't work under the SSA system as much. So they were getting to tap into the poverty amount of Social Security benefits. And that gave them way more money along with their government pension. Now, as we know, and I've seen many, many times, when people get a government pension and they get a Social Security pension or insurance, they don't work. Like, that's their job. They take that. That's what they're doing. They don't do anything more after that, for the most part. You know, you'll have rare instances where people will continue to want to work, etc. But for the most part, they get their military pension or they get their gov pension, and then they get their Social Security, and then they don't want to work anymore. And that's fine. That means you've reached the point, right? You got done. You did your thing. You worked for the years, and now you get to tap into the benefits. But this particular bill, Princess, howdy, howdy. Very, very cool. I'll give you guys an update on Sweetie. I will a little bit later in the video. So here's basically the deal, and thank you for becoming a appreciation member. That's awesome. So here's basically the deal, and I want you guys to understand this. The whole idea behind this bill is to give government employees, or at least those who were government employees, a better, a larger amount of Social Security benefits on a monthly basis. Now, some of you will be thinking, what the hell? Because, some of these government employees, they've got a government pension of $5,000 a month, $7,000 a month, $10,000 a month. And then you add on top of that, $1,000, $2,000, $2,500, $1,500 in Social Security benefits. So a lot of people don't realize, these government pensions plus that other thing, boy, they don't have to work. They shouldn't be working, right? This life is good. But the thing that they get the advantage of, these government employees, is that what happens is they're tapping into their Social Security benefits without having to pay in as much, which puts them in the poverty bracket because they don't have as many years working. And because it's a system where basically Social Security is set up to screw the rich, F over the middle class, and give most of it to the poor, the government people who didn't pay in as much are considered to be poor, even though they're not, and they get the benny. So the bottom line is, this particular Social Security Act, it helps out those who have a government pension, okay? Now, let's get into it, the nitty-gritty real quick. You guys are wondering why they're trying to help out, essentially, these government employees who have a pension already coming in. Now, similar to the feeling of senators and House reps voting themselves at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, a raise, we can see here that the government is taking care of its own, like it always does. Now, does that make the average worker feel left out? Absolutely. But this is nothing new. You've seen this all the time. Like, if Biden's great achievement in Social Security benefits is voting that government, employees get even more Social Security benefits, that's not outside of what his entire 4 years have been about. His 4 years have been about taking care of buddies, immigration, and basically, buying oil from places that we shouldn't be buying oil. So, bottom line is, that's not outside of his realm. Now, I understand some of the people who watch this are firm and aggressive and super left, and I get it. But nothing I'm saying with this is wrong. It's accurate. That's the reality of it. Now, will he go ahead and sign this if it passes the Senate? First and foremost, he's out at this point, right? So, and I mean out. His career is in politics over. He's on the presidential vacation tour mode, right? He's going to go here. He's going to go there. He's going to go in a helicopter. He's going to go on Air Force One. He's going to have a good time. He has worked out with President Trump, I believe, what he wants legally to happen. He has written his get out of jail free cards for his final day to be signed for those who wants to get out of jail. Other than a few public appearances, this holiday season is a big sigh of relief for him. So to be fair, he isn't laser sighting in on this Social Security benefit increase bill. Like, if it comes to his office and they're expecting the pen to go ahead and sign it, maybe, but at the same time, his interests, his activities are outside of, being in front of the Oval Office desk, considering signing it, etc. Now, another thing to consider, I can imagine that he may be, President Biden, a bit bitter towards the American people. Let's be fair here, okay? The Republicans are about to file a bunch of lawsuits against him and his family. The Democrats kicked him out of re-election, right? Harris basically told him to take a seat far away from her during the campaign trail and still lost after spending $1 billion. So is helping those who need and are receiving social security checks, are those people up high on his list, or are they kind of lower on his to-do list? I would say they're probably lower on his to-do list. He's probably thinking more about the legal concerns of what's going on and might be coming up against him. Now, I don't mean it in a mean way, but literally everyone from his perspective has effed him over. The Republicans effed him over, Democrats effed him over, his running mate back in the day, Kamala Harris, kind of effed him over. American people voted against him, so he's definitely not on the board with that, right? So he may be looking at this and saying, okay, well, there's a bunch of cops and sheriffs, there's a bunch of magistrates and this and that, all these government people. These government people didn't vote for me, and therefore, do I want to help them? So that's kind of the reality here, okay? Now, to be fair, the Republicans, the Democrats, the voting population, they're not in his best. I mean, look, he's got to have some hatred stored in him. He's got to have some rage in him. Now, if he gets, if this bill gets past the Senate and he doesn't sign it, it's a final FU to those who didn't vote for him. But at the same time, it doesn't cost him anything to just sign it. He also needs a win at this point. He doesn't have a win, right? He lost the Senate, he lost the House, he lost the White House. So he needs a win. And he hasn't really had he has had no Social Security wins at this level throughout his entire 4 years. He made a lot of great promises in his pre-White House website, did a big video on that, but he needs a win, right, in order to go ahead and make things feel better for him. Now, when you are the president, you lose the House and the Senate, the presidency, and you were kicked out of re-election that you were voted into from basically the Democratic side, you're going to be sitting there thinking, you know what? A lot of losses. How do I end this thing with a cherry on top? How do I get a win? Now, another consideration is whether or not President Biden wants to put the American people in a less financially stable position as kind of like a grudge reaction, like a knee-jerk reaction. If he signs this into law, it will make Americans' trust funds, right, the retirement trust fund, more at risk of running out too fast. Because remember, we're spending more money by giving it to those government employees who have a pension. So basically, those trust funds, specifically the retirement trust fund, will run out sooner. And the only people that's really helping, to be honest, are the government employees who have pensions. Now, I could see him being, for putting the American people in a financially more dicey position, since his style of leadership was kind of like tax and spend and devalue the dollar through shining the petrodollar. So I could see him using this knee-jerk option to sign this bill, thereby speeding up the process for the retired to be in a desperate situation. Remember, we're looking at the human here. We're not looking at the, what does the Democrat Party believe in? What does the Republican Party believe in? We're looking at the human. You know what I mean? Just as you would examine Nixon, we're looking at the human here. Now, the other side of the coin is that the president may be wanting to garner some affection from the American people, as he will likely face multiple lawsuits, the moment he leaves office, such as, the retained documents that he had, Ukraine under the table deals, right? Such as, some of the other family business things that popped up. And if he wants the American people to push Trump's team to let him slide, he will need them on board, although he must be worried because of the voting numbers being so strong against him. Nevertheless, he did have that sit down with Trump, and now we are seeing case by case being pulled off or withdrawn that were brought against Trump as Trump left office. Now, let's take a look at what the Senate is doing, because with this bill, how much time they have left, what they're doing with it currently, these are all important factors as to whether or not this bill that will increase Social Security benefits will actually make it to the president's desk. So let's take a look real quick over here. Now, if we look at the calendar set up for congressional calendar details, we have December. Now, the main thing is, what you need to know is that if we look at the 25th, basically that's a federal holiday, but they really get out of session, where basically they're in recess. Essentially from the 21st forward. Now, they have to leave some days for the president to potentially be able to sign this bill to increase Social Security benefits. So he needs more time than just one day to go ahead and pass it. So let's say they've got until basically the 17th. Let's say Tuesday, December 17th. Now, we are today, November 25th. So we are less than a month away from essentially this thing having to be passed by the Senate. So the Senate has until around December 17th That gives the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th for the president to potentially sign it. And then everybody pretty much goes into recess from the 21st on through the new year. So just to be very, very clear, and I want you guys to understand this, bottom line is we got less than a month for this thing to get through essentially the Senate. Now, I looked up where it was currently in the Senate chamber to kind of give you an understanding as to exactly where this thing is. I want you to see it specifically. All right, so just to go through, there was originally one submitted to the Senate called S.597. Sherrod Brown brought it forward. And basically that went nowhere. Went absolutely nowhere. It's been sitting in the Senate chamber. All it did, just so you know, date of actions was on 3/1/23. It was read twice and referred to the Committee on Finance. And that was the action by the Senate. So nothing actually happened to it. Nothing actually pushed forward with it. So bottom line is that was the bill brought into the Senate. But here's the one specifically brought and passed by the House, which was H.R. 82. H.R. 82 represents the actual Social Security bill that was passed to increase benefits at the House of Representatives. Let me read to you specifically what they did so you have a timeline understanding of exactly how this thing got through the House. On January 9th, 2023, the House introduced this bill. On 1/9/2023, the House referred this to the House Committee on Ways and Means. Okay, then they basically went over here. So on 11/5/24, so remember, they didn't touch this thing. They didn't give a shit about this bill until basically, so they went in on 1/9/23. Nobody did anything with it until basically like a month ago. And then on 11/5/24 at 5:02 p.m., there was a unanimous consent request. The chair recognized Mr. Good of Virginia for a unanimous consent request. Mr. Good, Virginia asked unanimous consent that H.R. 82 be laid on the table. So put another way, they didn't do shit with it until basically November, in the very, very beginning. They decided, let's put this thing on the table, let's get a vote, let's actually push this thing forward. Now on 11/12/24, okay, so we're talking like weeks ago, there was a unanimous consent request. Mr. Harris asked unanimous consent that the order of the House on November 5th, 2024, with respect to H.R. 82 be vacated, agreed to without objection, right? This was kind of where we got into this whole thing be vacated. They were starting to get pissed off at the Republicans for them trying to kill the bill, etc. Then we get to 11/12/24 at 4:46 p.m. That's the House. Mr. Smith moved to suspend the rules and pass the bill. Okay, so what we have here is a back and forth. Sorry, my chair's going to break. This is a second chair too, but you can hear it. Anyways, the point is we're seeing the Democrats and the Republicans going back and forth. Now, the Republicans got smart fast because they realized if they kill this bill, then everybody on Social Security benefits looks at this thing. If they don't understand what it is, all they know is it's an increase in benefits, and they don't understand it's an increase for government people who have a pension. But that's going to make the Republicans look really bad. So you're going to see right here in this part of what it did in the House of Representatives, where there was a scuffle between the Republicans and the Democrats as to what they should do with this bill. All right, so anyways, on 11/12/24 at 4:46 p.m., Mr. Smith moved to suspend the rules and pass the bill. On 11/12/2024, 4:46 p.m., it was considered under suspension of the rules. And then on 11/12/2024 at 4:46 p.m., there was debate. The House proceeded with 40 minutes of debate on H.R. 82. So, which is interesting too, because this bill, this idea rarely makes it to a floor. It's usually stuck in committee, and then it made it to the floor, and they had a total of 40 minutes of debate. It's not a complex bill. Like if I print it out for you, it fits on one page. It's mostly removing language, but the bottom line is, it's not a complex bill. All right, next one. 11/12/2024, so at 5:30 p.m., so after they finished their debate in the House, at the conclusion of the debate, the yeas and the nays were demanded and ordered. Pursuant to the provision of Clause 8, Rule XX, the chair announced that further proceedings on the motion would be postponed. Okay, so there was a postponement. Then we get to 6:32 p.m. that same night. Considered as unfinished business, consideration CR H5944-5945. Then we get to basically 6:58 p.m. Okay, and this is all happening on 11/12/2024. So just to do a little side note here, if you didn't think the House of Representatives could make things go through and pass them and get shit done, they literally decided to do all of this between 11/5/2024 and 11/19/2024 that it made to the Senate. And most of it was done on 11/12/2024. Like that one day, most of it was done. Most of the hearing, the back and forth, the notes, 11/12/2024, it was all snap, snap, snap. So anytime they tell you the House or the Senate can't pass something that quickly, BS. They could get it done in a day. All right, now anyways, All right, so 11/12/2024, on motion to suspend the rules and pass the bill agreed to by the yeas and nays, a two-third was required. They achieved 327 yeas to 75 nays and one present. Okay, because remember, this bill had like 330 something, co-sponsors, right? No, it's right here, right here. So it had 330 co-sponsors. Okay, so this bill was very popular to begin with. Now, at 6:58 p.m., the motion to reconsider laid on the table agreed to without objection. Ergo, on 11/19/2024, the Senate received the bill. Okay, so it took them basically 7 days where they all agreed on it in the House to transition the Social Security Fairness Act of 2023 to increase Social Security benefits. It took them 7 days to get it over to the House. So let me just summarize for you again how ridiculous it is with our legislature. Okay, on 1/9/23, the bill came in and was referred to the Committee on Ways and Means. Nobody gave a shit about it or did anything with it until 11/5/24. By 11/5/24, basically, they wanted to bring it forward. 11/12/24, they talked about it for 40 minutes. They worked on it a little bit here, worked on it there. They decided that same day we're going to pass it. Took 7 days to get to the Senate. 11/19/2024, Senate got it, and now we go to the Senate. Okay, so what is the Senate basically doing with this bill? Now, the Senate has received it, but it hasn't done anything with it at this point. And let me explain to you why there's some issues with what the Senate wants to do. There's, of course, the Congressional Budget Office, and they want to know essentially with this bill what it's going to cost. So, Honorable Chuck Grassley, Ranking Member, Committee on the Budget, United States Senate, Washington, D.C. Let's go through it real quick. You asked the Congressional Budget Office to provide information about how enacting H.R. 82, the Social Security Fairness Act of 2023, would affect the finances of the Old Age and Survivors Insurance OASI Trust Fund. That's the Retirement Trust Fund. And the finances of that fund combined with the Disability Insurance Trust Fund over the next 75 years, 2024 to 2098. Now remember, this is an important sentence because they're planning to sabotage the disabled. Okay. Did you hear that when it says, and the finances of that fund, right? The retirement fund, combined with the disability insurance trust fund. That's where they're planning to take the disability trust fund, suck it into the retirement trust fund, which will make the retirement trust fund last for 1 year longer. And then at that point, the disabled and the retired will both receive a 20 to 25% decrease, as opposed to the other alternative where the retired or the disabled are totally fine. Their trust fund's going to be okay for a long time. If they don't take the disabled trust fund and suck it into the retirement trust fund, the disabled will be okay. But they're not planning that. They're planning on taking the disabled people's trust fund and putting it into the retirement trust fund. H.R. 82 would eliminate the windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. The WEP reduces benefits for retired or disabled workers who have fewer than 30 years of significant earnings from employment covered by Social Security if they also receive pensions on the basis of non-covered employment. Now, to be fair, this was put in the 70s and 80s, 70s for the GPO, 80s, 83 for the WEP, to make it fair for the American people who don't have government pensions. Now they're saying it's unfair, when in reality, the way it is right now is actually fair. That's the fair way, because they're getting a boost. If they go ahead and pass this bill, the government pension people will get a boost. They'll lose the boost that they are trying to get. And the idea is that basically they get this boost because they haven't put enough money into Social Security, which very simply put, it puts them in the poverty section of Social Security benefits, which means the percentage of benefits that they get for how much they paid in goes way up. Just to summarize again, the poor get amazing Social Security benefit return on investment. The middle class gets totally effed, and the rich get totally and completely effed. They get hardly anything. They pay in the most, and they get hardly anything out of it. So the point of it is, just so you understand, the middle class and the wealthy, they almost always get screwed on any system that we have in this country that works on basically the poor getting more. And in this instance, just like our tax system, just like, essentially the poverty or the Social Security system, the poor always get the mega benefit. But that's what they're trying to go ahead and, make sure that these employees of the government with a pension can also get that benefit. Because what they passed in the 70s and 80s, they said that, hey, we're not giving you the poverty benefit here where you get more. We're going to go ahead and give you basically exactly what you deserve because you're already getting a big pension from the government. So, that's what it comes down to. Currently it's realistically more fair the way it is right now. But, government people, they don't earn much while they're working, but their pensions are really, really good. So, it all depends on legally where you stand, what you want. That's what it is. Do you want to help out government people with a pension? Do you not want to help out government people with a pension? That's what this comes down to. Okay, the GPO reduces the spousal or surviving spousal benefits of people who receive pensions on the basis of non-covered employment. Okay, now, like I said, it basically makes it so that the people with the gov pension don't get to have more access to Social Security benefits than they should for their actual income class. So, basically, they want to treat government employees like how middle-class people are treated instead of giving them even more on top, okay? The CBO's analysis shows that the elimination of the WEP and GPO as specified in HR 82 would permanently increase outlays for scheduled Social Security benefits, that is, the amounts that the program would pay if it continues to pay benefits as scheduled under the current law, regardless of whether the program's two trust funds had sufficient balances to cover those payments. That increase in Social Security benefits would drive the program's spending even further above its revenues than it already is projected to be under current law. So what they're saying is, basically it's a situation where it will cause the trust funds to fail sooner. CBO also estimated the effects of HR 82 on payable Social Security benefits. Payable benefits are the benefit that the program could provide if its outlays were limited to the amounts that could be funded by its annual revenues after the exhaustion of the trust fund balances. Here's the effect on the retirement finances. Enacting this bill would increase the 75-year actuarial deficit for the OASI, the Retirement Trust Fund, from the 4.18% of taxable payroll that is projected to be under the current law to 4.29%, CBO estimates. As a share of gross domestic product, the 75-year actuarial deficit would increase by 0.04 percentage points from 1.42% to 1.46%. The CBO estimates that the bill would increase outlays for the Retirement Trust Fund in each of the next 75 years by as much as 0.06% of GDP. Which doesn't sound a lot, but just to be clear, 0.06% of GDP is a big number. That's a very, very, very big number. If HR 82 was enacted, the balance of the trust fund for retired people would, as it projects, be exhausted roughly half a year earlier than it would be under current law. So just to make things understood, basically this will go ahead and shorten the lifespan of the retirement program for retirement benefits to pay full amounts, like your 100% like you're getting right now, by 6 months. So it would F over the general retired population by 6 months. Which to be fair isn't that far away, because if we're talking 2033, although it'll probably be sooner, 2033, that's less than 10 years away. That's kind of less than 9 years away. We know that they don't have right now in their calculations realistically where the fertility numbers are actually going to be going. So we know that this number is going to be worse. So realistically, 2031, 2032, maybe somewhere in there, but let's just say 2031. You take 6 months off because you passed this. Now you're into the territory of 2030, 2031, of when the trust funds for the retired people run out. My point to you is this. This is, it appears, a systematic approach to creating a failed retirement program. And the problem I see inherently with this whole thing is that we know that they've known that the Social Security trust funds were going to fail since the 80s. And we know that they've had to fix it over the past many, many decades. And we know that they're not going to. And as a result of that, it is a systemic, continuous attempt to destroy Social Security. Do you want my honest opinion? My honest opinion is this, okay? The reason America, even as rich as a country as it is, even though it's 35 trillion in debt, America knows one very basic thing about its farm animals, the humans that are working and paying taxes. The farm animals, if you give them money every month, they're not going to work. They're not going to work. They're just not going to work. The sooner you make the trust fund fail for retirement, the more retired people are going to go back to work. Now, look, Trump came out and said, we're not going to tax them at the 25,000, 34,000 levels anymore. We're not doing that. Now, there's still other rules. They take away $1 of your retirement benefits when you retire early, stuff like that. And there's still little rules there. But he said, look, the big one is we're not going to go ahead and tax them. The 25K, 34K, you earn above it. They don't take the 50% taxation or the 85% taxation. Now, let me be very straight with you. The politicians that live in Washington, the super wealthy that pay for the politicians that live in Washington, do not like Trump, because if you don't tax the retired, then you are not A, getting more money, and B, you're putting the retired in a more relaxed state, which means the retired don't have to work as hard because they get to keep more of their money, even though it's a double tax. It's unconstitutional, in my opinion. But the point is this. Because remember, the first time you pay retirement FICA taxes, you get taxed that money out. And then the second time you earn too much money when you're being paid it, they tax them again. So it's a double tax. But the point I'm getting at here is that the people who actually own DC, they don't like Trump. Because if Trump gets his way and ends that, then the retired people are going to have more money every single month, which means the retired people aren't going to have to work as hard. The main goal from what I am seeing from congressional leaders is to get the retired and the spouses and those who are survivors and those who are retired back to work. That is the number one goal of the Democrats and the Republicans. Why? The Democrats and the Republicans agree that they need more taxes. They agree that they need more people paying into the system than receiving benefits from it. They agree that they need more money from the working class by creating more workers so that they can borrow more money and spend it on bullshit that we think that they should not be spending it on. Ukraine, Israel, places like that, okay? European nations. You would be amazed if you learned how much money we spend on European nations that literally stab us in the back. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely mind-blowing. So the point is this. At the end of the day, they don't like Trump because Trump is upsetting the cycle of getting people who are disabled and retired to go back to work. And if he does that, then what you've created are stronger Americans, and those stronger Americans are going to live an actual retirement. Because, retirement, the whole idea of it is it's kind of like, you worked hard. Now you get to spend this little shitty part of the back end of your life doing what you want, even though you don't really get to do with your what you want because nobody has money anymore. Like over the past 4 years, massive inflation, devaluation of the dollar in extreme amounts. What's been created is America slipping from its primary first world into something less, which makes the American people unable to travel, go on vacations, etc. Now, I know that you guys don't think about this, and I think it's important. I think it's important. None of you have been talking about the health of the working class because a lot of you aren't worried about it. You're like, F them, tax them more. It is what it is. Screw them. Those are the people that feed you. You normally don't bite the hand that feeds you, but I understand where you're coming from. Nobody talks about the health of that group. And let me tell you what's going on with the health of that group. That group isn't getting into relationships and having kids because they don't have enough money to support a child. That group doesn't have enough money to support going on vacation. That group doesn't have enough money to afford a house, a stable place to live. That group doesn't have enough money to even afford cars now. The insurance for the house, the insurance for the car, they don't have it. So my point is, there's a collapse going on. I'm not going into it in full with this video because this video is not about that, although it is directly connected to it. The main thing that I think we have to understand is that if we don't fix the economy, we can't have nice, shiny, programs like Social Security, anything. We can't have retirement. We can't have disability. We can't have any of those. If we don't fix the economy, we can't get enough money to pay for people receiving a check. Now, some of you will say, F them. I already paid my money. And you did. I totally get it. But you paid for prior generations. The money that you need is coming from millennials. So good luck. That's the problem. That's the problem. The millennials they can't afford their student loans. They can't afford a house. They can't afford any of that shit. Now, remember, too, just to clarify, You know why you see me all the time complaining about how expensive things are? Like you go to the grocery store and you're like, shit, this is expensive. Try going to the business grocery store where you got to buy business stuff, tools, cleaning supplies, printers, computers, software, updates, monthly fees, insurance, on, right? Payroll company, this and that, and da da da, and bank accounts, and all this. Try doing that. That's at a totally different league of increased expenditure. So my point to you, just so you understand, is that I had to sit back. Literally, I was literally the guy who worked with mostly homeless and low income and didn't have to worry about, doing a lot of these, classic claims. Like I didn't have to get somebody that was always over 50 or this or that. I didn't have to get somebody who always met these parameters. Now I don't have that choice. I can only take so many homeless and low income people, and the rest I have to take what everybody else takes in this industry, because otherwise there's not enough money. There used to be enough gray room there, but now there's not enough money to actually run the firm like that. So we went through a big change. Like if I were to say anything, Biden was the ultimate tighten that belt kind of guy. He made us really refocus and reevaluate what our direction would be going forward. And that sucks too, because to be fair, a lot of the homeless, a lot of the low income. I had to reach out to somebody. We had to reject taking claims from one facility that was working with mothers who basically had been, abused for the most part. And as a result of that, to be very, very fair, we couldn't take them because they were too young. They were trying to get them back to work, and it wasn't going to work. Would have worked 4 years ago, but it won't work now because everything's too expensive. So that's, I think, what's really crucial about this too, is that as a result of the economy just not having the carrots and the meat and the beans that it needs to continue to ka-chunk and get this engine rolling, we're starting to see some of the math that is questionable related to whether or not we can do add-ons like this. And this is an add-on. It's basically giving government, pensioners a better gig, a better deal. Okay. Now, effects, let's go through this real quick. All right. So CBO's baseline budget projections reflect the assumptions that the program will continue to pay benefits as scheduled, at 100% as we're currently receiving them, under the provisions of the Social Security Act, regardless of the balances in the Social Security trust funds. So they're saying all this math is based off of the idea that they're going to go ahead, very simply put, and if everybody keeps getting the same amount of the check that they're supposed to get, 6 months will be hacked off of how much time they have before the trust funds run out. To show how the exhaustion of the trust funds balances might affect benefits, CBO also projects Social Security benefits under the assumption that they would be limited to the amounts payable from the program's dedicated funding sources. Once the balances in the trust funds fell to zero, so once the trust funds bottomed out, no more, they're empty, the Social Security Administration would no longer be able to pay full benefits when they were due. Although beneficiaries would remain legally entitled to full benefits, they just wouldn't be able to get them. Thereafter, annual outlays would be limited to annual revenues and payments to beneficiaries would be reduced. That is the most important sentence in here. I want to break it down for you, because if you don't get this part of this CBO report that literally they're using with the Senate right now, you got to understand this sentence. Thereafter, annual outlays, what they pay people per month as a part of that year, right? What they pay you. Normally they pay you 100%, but they're only going to pay you 75% because the trust funds ran out. Thereafter, annual outlays, how much they pay you per month, would be limited to annual revenues, how much the government makes in taxes, FICA taxes, and payments to beneficiaries would be reduced. That means you get effed because you don't get your full amount of a check, which is absolutely horrible. You don't understand. You can't imagine how many millions of people will immediately become massively impoverished, not be able to pay their mortgage, not be able to pay their rent, not be able to have four walls and a roof. It would be a tidal wave of absolutely horrific times. The share of the scheduled OASI benefits, the retirement trust fund benefits, that would be payable following exhaustion of the balance of the trust fund, the retirement trust fund, would be smaller under the bill than under current law because H.R. 82 would increase scheduled benefits, but total payable benefits will remain unchanged. Under the bill, the CBO estimates that in fiscal year 2034, after the OASI trust fund balance was exhausted, 74%, not 75. I always say 75, or I say like 77, 78, 79. But imagine your check. Let's do some basic math for everybody so that they kind of get what's going on. Let's pull up the calculator, the late night calculator, if you will. It's just the regular, computer calc. Let's say that the average person on retirement benefits is getting $1,800. Okay, I know some of you get less, some of you get more, but just basic math. Okay, we're going to keep the numbers big. We're going to multiply that by 0.74. Instead of receiving $1,800, they would only receive $1,332. Are you starting to see at $1,332 instead of getting $1,800 how complete destruction will occur? This is a hydrogen accident level problem. This is a massive, scary situation. Let me give you another one. Okay, Let's say that you're an SSDI person and they combine the SSDI, the disability trust fund, with the retirement trust fund. Let's say the SSDI person is getting $1,500 per month, right? We're just doing it in today's terms, the right now year's terms. And we multiply that by 0.75. So 1,500, times 0.74. Instead of getting $1,500, the disabled person would only get $1,110. Okay, so just imagine, right? You're sitting there, you're paying rent, you're like, okay, I'm doing my thing, and then all of a sudden this hits, and now you're making $110 more than an SSI person. That's it. You paid in your whole life. Average SSDI amount is like $1,500-ish bucks. And now all of a sudden you're getting SSI poverty level benefits because the trust funds ran out because the politicians are a bunch of, I'm not supposed to say biblical level stupidity terms, but I'll let you fill in the blank on these tardigrades. All right. So with that said, after the OASI, the retirement trust fund balance would be exhausted, 74% of total retirement benefits scheduled would be payable. Okay, so now you understand how little of money you would have after basically 2033, 2034, although it would likely be sooner than that because of the fertility rate problems. And just to share a little side thing, men are not dating and getting together with women at the rate that they need to. I'm keeping the whole they, them, and everybody else category out of it because, you know what I mean? They're not making babies at a fiscally responsible level that we could even include in this metric. But the point is, men and women are not getting together to save Social Security benefits by having kids that will become eventual workers. And the culture is that men are even more so leaving the dating pool of wanting to be with women because they feel like women have become something else. Now, women are becoming more empowered. Women are having more choices. Women are now have tons of the jobs that men used to have and managerial jobs. Women also have, to be fair, and I'm going to say this, I know some women are going to get upset. They have a bit of an exaggerated expectation as to what their man should be able to, the one that they're going to catch, should be able to pull in financially, should be able to be height-wise, should be able to be, in job-wise, status-wise. Because, they've done studies and then they look at it and they see, women fall, for a guy for many reasons. It could be love, it could be status, it could be that they like their, the person's dog, whatever. It could be anything. But the point is, women are acting more like men. And they're going through their bullet points, and their bullet points are a little bit exaggerated. And that's what the new studies are showing. And, the expectation that a guy would make $150,000, expectation that a guy would make $200,000, expectation that the guy would be 6'2", the expectation that the guy, would be able to go ahead and be a sports athlete and this and that. It's a little, you know what I mean? It's a little unrealistic. It's a little bit unrealistic. And so, the point of it is that at the end of the day, I kind of feel like we don't have a good culture for saving Social Security benefits. What we have instead is a culture where we're moving away from the identity, okay, of people basically creating traditional marriages. And I don't even know what a traditional marriage is anyway. But the point is, as a framing term, a marriage where they have kids and the kids get educated and they achieve stuff. That's what we need more of, because the only thing that saves Social Security benefits, it's not the politicians, the Republicans, the Democrats, that's not them. It's literally making more human beings that make more money, and then ultimately being smarter about how we invest the money that gets put into the government. Now, that share is 0.7 percentage points less than the share of the scheduled benefits that would be payable that year under the current law. All right, so here's the deal. Here's if they go ahead, I'm going to tell you this part, and take the disability trust fund and incorporate it, suck it into the retirement trust fund, and what'll basically happen. Effects on the OASI and DI finances if the trust funds were combined, meaning they're going to take essentially, basically the disability trust fund and suck it into the retirement trust fund to make the retirement trust fund last about a year longer. That's, what I mean? That's the next yada yada. So just, this is important. More than 99% of the increase in Social Security outlays from HR 82 would come from increases in the retirement benefits. CBO estimates, so the effects of the Social Security finances when the OASI, the retirement trust fund, and the DI, disability trust funds, are considered together as one trust fund are only slightly larger than the estimated effects of the retirement finances alone. So if they bring over the disability trust fund, it's not going to make that much different. It's just going to royally screw over the disabled. Although the retirement and disability trust funds are legally separate, in some of its analysis, CBO considers them as combined trust funds known as the Old Age Survivors and Disability Insurance Trust Funds. They're literally separate. They're two separate bank accounts. They're like, there's the disability trust fund, there's a retirement trust fund. And if you ever want to vote something a particular way, Charlton Zimmerman, come on, man. And maybe a little bit, but the point is this. I always get the zings from Charlton Zimmerman. But to be fair, it's not wrong. You guys can go see the metrics on the whole relationship thing. So the thing with this is, when it comes to these two accounts, if you're a disabled person, you do not want them ever to take the disabled trust fund and inject it into the retirement trust fund. The retirement trust fund is a sinking effing ship. It is a sinking ship. There are very few ways to fix it because it requires so much money to fix it on a yearly basis. And those younger people who are working right now can't afford to pay increased taxes. And the government is too used to milking those FICA taxes and using them as special bonds for other stuff that they want to spend it on that are not good investments. And so the bottom line is the retirement trust fund is right now, as it stands, a sinking ship. It is. It is. The disability trust fund is not. That one's okay. That one's safe. That one's still good. That one's still good. So if you take that disability trust fund and you suck it into the retirement trust fund, you made it way worse. Like whatever politician thinks they're doing a good job, they've ruined more lives than they could ever imagine. And here's why. The disabled already get significantly less than the retired. The retired, hold on. What's the average retirement amount this month? Let's see. Average retirement amount. So for this month, the average retirement amount is, let's see, hold on. Boop. I'm looking for a monthly balance here. Hold on, let me put it in per month. Let's see. Still not giving me it. What the hell? Okay, so average monthly benefit for a retired worker. Let's see. We got an SSA website thing here. Oh, God. All right, so January 2024, it was saying, for example, the estimated average monthly Social Security retirement benefit for January 2024 is $1,907. That seems a little high for January 2024. But anyways, just under $2,000, $1,904. Now we look at average monthly SSDI amount. Let's see what this comes up with. 1,538. Okay, so the disabled don't have money to lose. They don't have money. They don't have room. The retired, they got a little room. They got a little room because it's like just under 2K-ish. You can lose a couple $100 here, although, if it pays out. So let's do the math on that. What was the actual thing? Hold on, let me pull it back up again. So let's just assume it was $2,000. Let's just assume it's $2,000. Keep the numbers big. If it's 2,000 a month, we multiply that by 0.74, because 74%, they would get around $1,480 if they lost, right? If they did this bill and the trust funds ran out, then your retirement check would only be, if you were supposed to get 2,000, you only get around 1,480. But if you take that same disabled amount, right? We go back to that, 1,538. So 1,538 times 0.74, you'd only have $1,138.12. The disabled don't have room. If you steal the disabled people's trust fund, they do not have enough room to afford anything. And to be fair, I know exactly what the single wide 1-bedroom trailers go for in the trailer parks, because I represent a lot of claimants who are trying to get into one of those. Okay. There's no $500 single wide, single room. There's no 600, 700. There's like a 900 and up. And a 900 is like a good deal. Now, you can go to the real Mosquito Alley ones and maybe get 700, or maybe one that's missing part of the roof, 500 to 600. But realistically, a functioning, actual single wide, single bedroom trailer, you're looking at 900 plus. And I'm curious, you guys let me know, what do you guys pay if you're in a trailer? Or what do you guys pay for an apartment? Because, it's just, you can't make it if they cut you down from $1,580 to $1,138.12. You can't make it. There's not enough money. All right. So bottom line is this. All right. So the actuarial deficit of the combined disability and retirement trust funds would increase under H.R. 82. So the deficit would increase, obviously, if they pass this. Enacting the bill would raise the 75-year actuarial deficit from the 4.33% of taxable payroll it is projected to be under current law to 4.44%. And now remember, they give you statistics. Statistics that basically, to be very, very fair, they give you statistics of them potentially increasing what the actual tax would be on the working class. How many of you feel that the working class can afford any tax increases? If the economy was better, maybe, but then you'd have to fix the student loan thing, which never got fixed. Like, that was like one of the best things about Biden. Biden was like, we're going to try and do this, and then the Supreme Court and the lower courts, they just slapped him down. So bottom line is this. You can't expect them to pay more when they've already got student loans nipping at their butt. Okay. So, it's just not going to happen. All right. Now, with that said, let's keep reading. As a share of the GDP, the actuarial deficit would increase by 0.04 percentage points from 1.47% to 1.51. The CBO estimates that enacting H.R. 82 would increase annual OSDI, the retirement and disability trust fund outlays, what they have to pay out, above what they would be under current law by as much as 0.06% of GDP in each of the next 75 years. So it's still a chunk of money, a very, very chunky amount of money. Final details from the CBO office. And remember, this is what the Senate is reading. They got to pass it, and then they got to get to the president. Okay. If H.R. 82 was enacted, the balance of the combined OASDI trust funds would be exhausted roughly half a year earlier than it would be under current law. CBO estimates the balance of the combined disability and retirement trust funds is projected to be exhausted during fiscal year 2034 under current law. CBO estimates that the following: the exhaustion of the combined trust fund balance under the bill, 77.7% of total scheduled benefits for OASDI would be payable, slightly less than the 78.3% that is projected to be payable under current law. The estimates described in this letter are subject to significant uncertainty. In particular, the number of people who will be subject to the WP or GPO under the current law over the next 75 years is uncertain. So just let's bracket it down so you guys get it. If they pass this law, if they don't pass this law, you will be able to, around 2033-ish, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later, be able to get 78.3 of your disability check your retirement check. Or if they combine them, right, then you'd be around there. But you'll be able to get 78.3% of your check. You won't be able to get 100% because the trust funds will have run out. If they go ahead and pass this and steal the disability trust fund money and put it in the retirement trust fund, you will be able to get, along with the disabled, 77.7% of your monthly check. But if they don't steal the disability trust fund money and put it into the retirement trust fund, you'll only get 74% of your monthly check. Now that you understand what the Senate is facing, you have to understand that the Senate, they're in there longer. Senators that are being put in today right? So they're starting in 2025. That means they're going to be 2031 when they're leaving. That means that they're going to be right up against this thing if they vote this thing through. So senators being put in today are not going to be real quick to create and sign and pass a bill that will completely damn all of the non-government pension employees to a sooner, 6 months sooner, effing around of taking away a mega percentage of the retired and disabled's money. And just to be clear, like, this is what the Senate is thinking. The Senate's sitting there thinking, okay, I got 6 years in here. I got 6 years. That puts me, so we got the 5 plus the 1, that puts me at 2031-ish area. Shit's going to hit the fan 2032, 2033 area. So if I pass this, am I going to get reelected? That's what's going through the senator's mind. The senator is saying, well, I don't know. If I pass this, can I get reelected? And I want you to understand something. A politician's number one job is not making you happy. It is not getting things done. It is getting reelected. That's the bottom line. That's the number one job of any House rep, senator, president. It is getting reelected. Okay? Any position, county, state, federal, they want to achieve term maximum limit. And if there's no limit, they want to keep doing it. We've had a lot of senators that sit in that seat for a very long time. And I want you to understand one basic thing about that. The senators are sitting there saying 2031, that means 2032, 2033, the shit's going to hit the fan. I pass this, no reelection. No reelection. So do I think President Biden will sign this? No. I think it's going to die in the Senate. I think it's going to die in the Senate because they have to look at this and figure out where exactly they are at with their reelection campaign. Do I think that there's enough time to get this thing through? Absolutely. They got all the time until basically December 20th, but they still got to give the president a few days. So let's say they pass it through on the 16th or 17th, then the president can go ahead and grab it. Do I think the president would sign at the end of the day? I think he would. But I also think he needs a win. And he hasn't done shit for Social Security in the way that he wanted to. He did give us an amazing commissioner. He gave us Commissioner Martin O'Malley, who did amazing changes. But the changes at the congressional level, he hasn't done shit. He said, hey, let's give him more of a budget. Let's give him more of this. But he wasn't the big cheerleader. I was expecting him to be a huge cheerleader for Social Security. And he just wasn't that. He was a very, very itty-bitty cheerleader. I was expecting a massive, massive cheerleader. People make fun of me for that. But the bottom line is I really thought, from his pre-White House website, which was amazing. It was amazing. His pre-White House website was better than Harris's, was better than Trump's, was better than Trump running all the time. It was way better. But again, a lot of those ideas, they never made it. They never made it to round 2 of any of the discussions. All right, with that said, we've gone through a lot of stuff here. You guys understand, one person said we're getting hit by an asteroid in 2036, which I think is actually true. I think there's one that's coming around that might miss us, might not. But anyways, I hope you guys are having an amazing night. I'm going to go straight to the next video where I go live and answer questions for free. With that said, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays to answer questions for free. You get about 5 to 7 minutes per call. Don't use, story mode. Have your legal question ready. Please remember to like and subscribe. And please remember, if you want this channel to be able to go through stuff like this and do analysis and present what's going on with Social Security law, Social Security politics, the nitty-gritty stuff with administrative law judge hearings, stuff like that, please support the channel because that's the way I get to keep making these videos. Now, with that said, I do love when you guys go to Google, you type in disability resolution, again, disability resolution law firm or disability resolution Florida, put those reviews in there. I did get a cool little toy right here, which allows me to hook up the, the iPad. So in the future, we're going to be using that. And we're also going to be using a program in the future to do like split screens because I have some interviews coming up. I am happy to go ahead and announce that there are quite a few congressional people who are actually subscribers to this channel. One of them's a member, which is really cool. That's a high up individual. So in the future, the channel is expected to grow and continue to do amazing stuff. With that said, I will catch you at the next video shortly. Please remember, Mondays and Thursdays I go live. If you need an hour to access my brain when it comes to disability benefits, as Attorney Walter Hnot, most of you can subscribe to Disability Attorney in America. That's cool. Private little mini contract is below for that private hour. I will catch you guys at the next video in about 10 minutes. I've got to load it still. So once I load it, you'll be able to see it on the channel screen. I'll see you soon. We'll catch up from there, and have a wonderful, wonderful night. And I'll see you at the next video. Thanks so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye.